Good morning. Welcome to our Public Affairs Forum at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin, 4700 Grover Avenue. I'm Bonnie Gardner, co-chair of the forum. You can find out more about our forum programs by going to our church website at www.austinuu.org. Our forums are free and open to the public and occur most Sundays at noon. And now I want to invite Dale Beulah to introduce a wonderful speaker. Dale?
Thank you, Bonnie. I'm proud to introduce Bob Gedert. Bob is the director of our Austin Resource Recovery Department for the City of Austin. He's responsible for about 400 employees. The operation provides direct services to our citizens, including trash, recycling, yard trimming, collection, street sweeping, household hazardous waste, litter abatement, and the implementation of our Austin Zero Waste program, which he's going to be discussing this morning. Formerly, he operated the recycling services at the City of Fresno, Department of Public Utilities, providing services to single-family, multifamily, and business customers within the City of Fresno. He has led them to from a 29% recycling diversion rate to a 75% diversion rate through expansion of recycling, composting, and so on to residents, businesses, and schools. He has about 30 years of experience in the field in recycling and solid waste, including the design and operation of several material recovery facilities. And I'm sure he could elaborate on that. He also worked in Ohio and the development of curbside collection programs throughout Indiana. Bob also is the former chief of resource reduction and recycling for the state of Indiana and has written many state statutes supporting his recycling efforts. He's been involved in recycling and waste reduction since 1975, and he's here to share some of that experience with us this morning. So let's welcome Bob Gedert to our Public Affairs Forum.
Thank you, Dale. And thank you for the church community in inviting me here. UU's been very supportive of this forum, 51 years. That's excellent. And I appreciate being a participant. I do have a PowerPoint. I'm a little slow on the front end of the PowerPoint, very quick on the back end of the PowerPoint, and I will preserve quite a bit of time for question and answers at the end there. I know that many of you come with some questions, and I want to be able to address those. I am honored to be here, and I desire to speak to you about the zero waste goals of the city of Austin, what our activities are in the near future in reaching zero waste, and what you can do to participate in zero waste. And I do apologize on my voice. It's coming and going, a little bit of laryngitis in the last month, and so I will be drinking some nice fresh water here. I will say that prior to the PowerPoint, I want just a note that we are in our house of worship. I want to mention that we have a premise that many of us operate from of protecting the earth. And if you're a Christian, it's in Genesis. If you're of many other different faiths, there are many different references to the protection of earth as God's creation, and that it's our responsibility to care for it. My career is built on that premise, and I ask that you take this presentation in that perspective there. Once again, my name's Bob Gedert. I'm the director of Austin Resource Recovery. Our department is on the path of resource recovery on the journey towards zero waste. We have renamed ourselves. We used to be called Solid Waste Services. We are now called Austin Resource Recovery. The whole point of naming our organization in a different forum, in a different statement, is that we're no longer trying to pick up waste and send it to the landfill. We do that. We do that on a daily basis. We pick up your trash and we send it to the landfill. But our goal and our ambition and our mission is more in recovery of resources. And as time goes on, we will be recovering more material than we landfill. That is our goal, and thus our name change there. In the past, we were a sanitation waste department, created in the 1920s to get the trash off the streets before the rats got to it. and it was a sanitation effort. More recently, in the last 40, 50 years, we've been into integrated waste management. And the idea of integrated waste management is you've got a cart for trash, but you have other services as well that are integrated within it, recycling, composting, household hazardous waste, and so forth. Our new direction is materials management. This is a little different than waste management, and it's an important distinction. We're not there to pick up your waste. We're there to pick up your materials. Your materials need to be managed in such a way that they can be recovered, either through recycling or composting. It's a philosophical shift there towards our zero waste goal. Now, I will say that the services that my staff provides is to single-family households. Much of what I'm to speak of also applies to apartment complexes, but my staff doesn't service the apartment complexes. Our private sector haulers do. But much of our activity involves promoting recycling and composting services at the apartment and business level as well as the single family. But I put it in the context of our department working with single family households. How many of you live in a single family house in Austin? Oh, good majority of them. How many live in an apartment complex? Those are the ones that stay tuned, because I'm going to give you advice on how to get recycling to your apartment complex there. Our mission to achieve zero waste by providing excellent customer service. We don't want to forget that we're there to serve you, and that promote waste reduction, increase resource recovery, and support the city's sustainability efforts. That's the mission of our department. What is zero waste? The City Council endorsed zero waste in January 2009. They signed a resolution. It was part of the UN Accords, environmental accords, where the mayor and the City Council said, we need to do better on reducing what we send to the landfill. So they embraced the concept of zero waste. Zero waste is a goal. It's ethical, economical, efficient, visionary. But the two main components I want to highlight in this definition are in red, and that is where all discarded materials are designed to become resources for others to use. That's in the product manufacturing, the packaging world, so forth, that we are pushing the envelope of product design so that they can be resources rather than waste. The second part is our responsibility, and that is conserve and recover all resources and not burn or bury them. So on our end, as we push manufacturers for recycled content and compostability standards, at our end, we need to collect the material and make sure it does get recycled and composted. So that's the part of the definition of zero waste. We put numbers to it. We put goals to the zero waste definition. The goal of zero waste is 90% plus being diverted away from the landfill, not burned, not buried. And in 2010, in Austin, we were at 35% diversion. In 2013, 42% diversion. Now, this is single-family households within Austin. We're still trying to get a handle on measurement of apartment complexes and commercial enterprises. So we don't have a real number yet to work with in those arenas. But in single-family households, 42% diversion, 50% by 2015 is our goal, our intermediate goal. 75% is a city council goal set by resolution for 2020. And then another intermediate goal of 85% 2025, 90% by 2030, 95+% by 2040. Part of what we need to do is focus on that 50 and 75%. We can reach 75% by very aggressive recycling, very aggressive composting. And this PowerPoint will show how we can do that. Going beyond 75% really means challenging the way we live, challenging the products and packaging we buy, challenging the manufacturers on how they can produce products and packaging that's more in sync with our zero waste goals. There are more than 200 cities in the U.S. that have embraced zero waste, and we are on that edge of embracing the philosophy and now walking the steps, trying to meet that goal. Austin's zero waste program went through a planning process, a public planning process. It took 2 years, And we developed a 300-page document, what we call our master plan. And there are 4 keystone initiatives within that plan. This is what makes us unique from the other 200-plus cities that have zero waste. Our focus, our keystone initiatives towards zero waste, materials management, the 4 R's: rethink, reduce, reuse, recycle. And we really focus on those 4 R's. We often jump in the past to recycling. Recycling's been my career. I very much support recycling, but we need to think about the 4 R's as a comprehensive package. Expanded recycling opportunities. We need to expand recycling not only to single family, but to multifamily commercial enterprises, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Organic collection and composting. Moving not only the yard trimmings from your yard into composting, but also food waste, collecting food waste and composting food waste. And recycling economic development. I believe that recycling can generate jobs. I believe those jobs need to be in the Austin area. So we have developed an economic development program to draw any type of business that might be affected by our zero waste goals, draw them to the city, and try to avoid shipping the material to China and India. So that's part of our keystone initiatives. Our master plan, I won't read the entire titles. These are the titles of the different chapters. You can see they're topical related on various different topics. I might point out the bottom one, greening special events. City Council is working on a special events ordinance that will require recycling and composting as special events that are sponsored by the city. More chapters of our master plan. Note the top one, recycling economic development. Note that in the middle, city department partnerships. The city needs to practice what it preaches. And so we're working with 20 different city departments trying to integrate zero waste into the practices of city government. And that's an important practice there. Going back also down at the bottom, financial models. Part of the triple bottom line is social equity, environmental ethics, and financial ethics too. We need to be able to make sure these programs are financially capable of self-supporting and sustainability and not just subsidized for a few years and then dies out. So financial models are very important there. Part of the working principle here in Austin is that the city controls only 25% of the waste stream. Private sector haulers operate and collect 75%. So we're building the partnership with private sector haulers to encompass and influence the entire waste stream. So part of our master plan is built on the principle of partnerships. It's very important that in order to reach zero waste, it's not the city government's responsibility to pick up every ton that's out there. It's our responsibility collectively to make sure it's recycled or composted in whatever means and whoever the carrier may be. That's an important working principle in our master plan. Basic concept that we're starting with is what is in our waste stream. This is a residential assessment from CapCog in 2002. We plan on updating this. This is a 12-year-old study now, and this year we're going to do a waste composition study of our waste. But this is representative of what gets thrown into the trash from households. And you'll see different percentages, different categories. It's what we call 12 different major categories of materials management. When you add it up, about 50% is recyclable and 40% compostable. That adds up to 90%. So physically, what single-family households are throwing out to door right now, 90% can be recovered, either through composting or recycling. The job we have is making sure we put it in the right color bin and get it collected and get the mechanics going and the markets for that material. But 90% goal is very realistic given this composition of our waste stream. What about the other 10%? I get challenged on the other 10%. And that might be the chemicals and some of the ceramics and some of the non-recyclable, non-compostable. It adds up to roughly 10%. First of all, don't let the tail wag the dog. In other words, focus on the 90%. Let's not focus too much on the 10. But we are focused on the 10 on what is called EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, of talking to businesses and trying to take the non-recyclable, non-compostables and redesign them. And that's part of our package, is working on that 10%. But our current focus is that 90%. Our master plan is in synergy with the sustainability efforts of the city. We encourage green purchasing within our operations. We're working on routing efficiencies, trying to reduce the miles of our trucks. We're purchasing CNG, biodiesel hybrids, alternative fuel vehicles, trying to be as green as possible as an operation. The private sector haulers are challenging themselves as well and going down that path as well too. Waste reduction. We need to remember in the 4 R's that waste reduction is important. We forget as we jump ship towards recycling that waste reduction is our first priority. It is a first look at the waste stream. Can we reduce the waste from being generated before we have to handle it? And part of that might be what we call junk mail that's coming in your mailboxes. And I encourage you to jump on the bandwagon, join Catalog Choice. It's off of our website. It's a free service. And you can sign up for this service, and it's got a long list of things that you can check that you do not want delivered through your mail. You can keep certain things delivered and not have certain things delivered, and you can narrow the amount of junk mail that comes to your house. That's waste reduction. We also have a similar program on commercial businesses where we have a staff of experts going out to businesses and saying, here's how you can reduce your waste. Here's material that's going in your waste bin that perhaps could be avoided or could be recycled. The principle of highest and best use is the concept that as we capture a material, let's use it for the highest and best use. And recycling is in the middle ground. Landfilling is down here at the bottom. And reuse and waste reduction is up here higher than recycling. So we think about the concept of hierarchy and how best to use the material. Reuse and repair businesses is very high on that highest and best use. So we're encouraging more and more reuse. We'll be developing in the next year a creative arts teacher resource center for teachers to take materials that are donated from private businesses and reuse them in the classroom. We're also working with Ecology Action and rebuilding their drop-off site for recycling and adding reusables into that collection program as well. Part of what you see as single-family residents is our single spring recycling collection program. About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I'm losing track of time, the city converted to a single spring collection program. And we now have long-term recycling processing contracts with 2 different vendors, north and south. We add materials to the single spring program. Most recently, we added some household metals and aluminum foil to the program. Each year, it's our intent to add new material to the program so that we can add more into the recycling blue cart. We do provide 96-gallon carts. 64-gallon blue carts are available upon request. We are transitioning. We have a bi-weekly service every other week. We desire to go to a weekly service. It's kind of targeted in 2017, and it depends on economics. It depends on how we reach towards 75% and how much material is being collected in the blue carts versus the trash carts. And so we're guessing around 2017 getting to that weekly service there. Similar to the recycling program, we're going to a single spring organics collection program. We're doing a pilot. We've got 8,000 homes on a pilot. We're adding 8,000 more homes next month to our pilot, and for about 16,000 homes. And first of all, before we collect the material, we do promote backyard composting. We have workshops. You can join, follow us on our website and join in on a workshop on how to backyard compost. And that's the best way to handle organics, is to not pick it up, not ship it, not take it anywhere. Just deal with it in your backyard. If that's not possible at your end, we want to collect yard trimmings and food waste in 96-gallon carts, 64-gallon carts as an option. We want to collect the food scrap and the compostable paper in these carts, and we desire to package this similar to the single-stream recycling collection, where it's a weekly service in a 96-gallon green cart that you can put all this material in, goes to a composting operation, and gets composted rather than to the landfill. Food waste added to this yard trimmings is the challenge, and we're working through those challenges through the pilot. And we hope by 2016, 2017 to have full city service on the food scrap. I mentioned at the bottom down here, Universal Recycling and Composting Ordinance. That's an ordinance that's adopted by City Council. We're going through the rules process that will be heading to City Council. But the ordinance in its basic concept is that every single building in the city must provide recycling services to its tenants. Every single building, including this building. Any commercial building, any hospital, any governmental building, any residential building, every building by this ordinance must provide recycling services to its residents. What we've added more recently is if there is food waste production, if there's food waste that's being generated on site, you also have to provide food waste and yard trimmings collection to the tenants of every building in the city that generates the food waste. So a kitchen, a cafeteria, restaurants, fast food enterprises, so forth. So this is a far-reaching. It is a 4.5-year phase-in period of this ordinance, and by 2017, fully implemented. Household hazardous waste. This is a component of the waste stream that should not go into the landfill because it's dangerous in the landfill, but it's also not recyclable or compostable in the traditional sense, that it's a dangerous material that needs a little bit of special handling. We have a household hazardous waste collection site down south at Todd Lane. We've expanded the Saturday hours, battery retail take-back at various different retail stores. We've enlarged our door-to-door collection, and we'll continue to enlarge that door-to-door collection. We're working on a pharmaceutical take-back program. We do it twice a year with the DEA, the national effort. Would like to and desire to create a regular service on a pharmaceutical take-back. And we're adding a north household hazardous waste site. We've heard from our residents that down south is too far, so we're adding a north site. More news on that later in the next few months. Closed landfill. We have a closed landfill at FM 812. It's just south of the airport. It was closed prematurely because of the air flights and the expansion of the airplane pathways, the takeoff and landing strips and so forth. And so we have a landfill that's half utilized, half not. We've got some unused land. On the used land, we're into post-closure care of the city landfill. We're trying to capture the gas that's emitted from it, the methane and other gases, trying to create a landfill gas energy project. We want to put a solar field out there on the hillsides that are south-facing. And on the 100 acres, 110 acres that are unused by the landfill, we want to put an eco-industrial park. That's part of our economic development plan to bring in jobs, handling recyclables, and creating products and the remanufacturing of products through recycled content. And that's part of the game plan there. Leading into recycling economic development, we support the concept of byproduct synergies, where a waste from one business may be a resource for another business. And that type of waste trading or waste pairing, we will be supporting by a contract that we'll be signing in the next couple months. Business Waste Reduction Assistance Program, I mentioned that earlier, of staff visiting with businesses on how to reduce their waste. Eco-Industrial Park at the landfill. Brownfield Redevelopment Program. We're trying to reuse old pieces of property that were tainted with environmental disasters of some sort. We're cleaning up those sites and putting them back into productivity. We have hired a recycling economic development liaison to work on all these projects. Partnerships, part of our master plan, the main philosophy behind many of the chapters, I think 5 chapters in our master plan, is partnerships with different entities around the city. We can't do it all alone. And so community and nonprofit partnerships, we build upon contractual relationships. An example is Keep Austin Beautiful, where we have a contract with them to go into the schools and teach zero waste. Regional cooperation, interlocal agreements. City Council just signed an interlocal agreement with Travis County to expand our zero waste activities into the county outside the city limits. Public-private partnerships, always trying to work on contractual relationships with private companies, expand those jobs locally, and create some economic synergies on the handling of these materials and the packaging, particularly on recycling, but also in the future on composting as well too. Education institution partnerships. We've talked to UT, we've talked to St. Edwards, we've talked to a lot of different universities in the area about research and development and trying to work on the whole concept of design for recyclability. So some partnerships that are brewing there. Policies and ordinances are a job of our City Council, and our City Council is very supportive of zero waste. They're working on the Universal Recycling and Composting Ordinance. I mentioned that, the Phase 1 and Phase 2, creating a complex set of rules that impact every single business in the city, hopefully in a positive way. Special event recycling ordinance, that will be coming to City Council pretty soon with some green initiatives within that special event ordinance. Construction, demolition, deconstruction, we just started some public meetings to develop an ordinance that we will take to City Council to require construction and demolition waste to be recycled. So that's up and coming. Single-use disposable products and packaging is a target of ours because it's a part of our waste stream that generally cannot be recycled, cannot be composted. So we're looking for product redesign where we have longevity of the product rather than single use of the product. An example of that we just recently worked on is the single-use bag ordinance that now requires retailers that at the retail checkout counter to distribute reusable bags and not to single-use bags. That helps towards our zero waste goals right there. And I mentioned earlier support of extended producer responsibility, the concept of working with different companies on redesign of their products and their packaging. Most recently, I've been working with PepsiCo on the redesign of their bottles so that they're more recyclable. So there's some work in that arena as well too. Incentives and rewards. Of course, we want to incentivize. We want to reward any business that is on the bandwagon towards zero waste. And so we have a business assistance and recognition program. We also have a rebate program for any of you that want to join us on composting in the backyard. We do a rebate on an experimental basis with some city-sponsored events on recycling and composting. And we have a general rate structure that incentivizes and supports with lower cost, lower waste streams, higher cost for higher waste streams. Now it's time for me to speed up a little bit and get to the question and answers. And that is, in general, on the residential diversion, as we go through from 2010 to 2030, we add up the tonnages, and the green row is what our focus on. Notice 82,000 tons collected for reuse, recycling, and composting in 2010, and 332,000 tons collected in 2030. I see jobs and economic activity there. On the opposite end, we're trying to reduce, in that middle row, residential waste disposal. So our goal is increasing resources recovered and reducing waste disposal. And that's part of our job. That's part of where I ask for your assistance in your living environment as well. Same concept on commercial. These numbers are not as exact. We're still trying to get a handle on how much waste is out there in the commercial sector. These are good guesses, but they're not exact. But the same concept, working from approximately 33% diversion in 2010 to 90% diversion in 2030. All these programs cost money. I won't bore you with all the details here, but I have a conversation with City Council every year, every summer, about here's the new programs we add on, here's the new cost. One thing that's interesting that I want to observe is that as we divert material away from a landfill, we have reduced landfill tipping fees. And we are on the downward trend of reducing what goes to the landfill. We save money by not landfilling it, and we pay for some of our programs through some of that economic savings. It doesn't pay for everything, but it helps balance the books a little bit. So we are into the mode of investing into our new programs. There is an economic impact, and that's a city council discussion that I have every year. And I have a very supportive city council towards these objectives, but we need to be responsible for our ratepayers that we don't get out of whack with the rates. And that's a constant struggle to get the programs up and running at a reasonable cost there. We have a pay-as-you-throw pricing structure for single-family households. It's a unit pricing per gallon of trash. The larger trash can you got, the more you pay. The smaller trash can you got, the less you pay. We reward conservation. The wasters pay more per month. We finance new programs through some of these rates. And I'll show that in a chart just a minute. Pay-as-you-throw encourages waste reduction. We hope that you downsize your trash can and you increase your recycling can, and you think about what type of waste you're generating and seeing if you can reduce that waste. And pay-as-you-throw rate structures, there's more than 30,000 communities around the country that have pay-as-you-throw, and under different economic studies and waste studies, they have demonstrated that there is not only a transference of material to a recycling bin, but there is a waste reduction in general when we have a pay-as-you-throw pricing structure. And we want to encourage that at your household level as well. Here's our price structure for single-family households right now, paying for the programs that the city is currently exercising and being involved in. And it's a 16-cent per gallon charge for the first three sizes, 24-gallon, 32-gallon, 64-gallon. You'll see a monthly trash fee calculated on the 16 cents. That's the third column. The fourth column is a standard recycling fee. The fifth column is a standard organics fee, and then a total fee. So you'll see in red, 1975, that's how all our services packaged together. About 65% of our customers use that service level, 64-gallon. If you have a 96-gallon cart, you might want to challenge yourself to downsize to that 64. If you have a 64, can you downsize to the 32? Economically, it's lower cost for you, but it also encourages us in that we get more material captured in recycling and less to the landfill. A note on the 96-gallon, you're being overcharged, basically, by the intent of City Council. If you have a 96-gallon cart, you're paying a fairly high rate, and that's subsidizing some of our new programs. That's part of our revenue flow for the new programs. We would like to eliminate that category eventually, that cart category. Customer satisfaction, I start with customer satisfaction in our mission. I end with customer satisfaction. It is our job. We are providing a governmental service to single-family households. I want to make sure we're providing the service that you guys want. And the standard general definition of customer satisfaction in the government sector is about 60%. That's too low. Acceptable, 70%. High quality, 80%. The gold standard, 90%. We do annual surveys of our customers. Several thousand customers are inventoried through an independent research firm. And most recently, we have 86% customer satisfaction, still trying to inch it up towards 90%. We're focused on improvements. We know that routing of our trucks can affect the delivery service. Many of you, if you have complained, it may be the delivery through the pickup service through our routing. We may have changed our routing. You're used to a late pickup, then all of a sudden you have an early pickup and we missed you. We're trying to work those problems out. Of note is that most recently we're color coding our trucks, and we're doing that on behalf of you as citizens so that you have a comfort level that a blue truck picking up recyclables is going to a recycling facility. A green truck picking up organics is going to the composting facility. And a brown truck is picking up trash and going to the landfill. And you can follow any of these trucks and have a comfort level that the material is going to the designated place that it should be going to. Other core services, I won't list all these for you. I want to get to the question and answer, but there's a large list of other activities that our department's engaged in, including litter pickup and so forth. I want to conclude, last PowerPoint slide, I want to conclude with a little bit of disappointing news, and that is that 72% of our residents are setting out their blue card. And this is a green city. Austin's a green city. We brag often that it's an ethical goal of this city to be green. It's not just a city council goal, it's a citizen's goal. 72% set out is really low. And so I would ask that you challenge your neighbors and put a little bit of peer pressure out there that those blue cards get utilized. We're not meeting our tonnage goals for our recycling collection. The 42%, to get the 50%, we're doing okay on composting. We're not doing okay on recycling. And so I want to encourage more and more recyclables, more and more use of the blue card. And if you live in an apartment complex, talk to your manager about delivering recycling services. At this stage of the Universal Recycling Ordinance right now, if you have 100 units or more, you're required to have recycling services to your tenants, if it's 100 units or more. Beginning October 1st of this next year, if it's 75 units or more, the following year 50 units or more, the following year 25 units or more, and the following year everybody. So it's a phase-in downsize to the smaller apartment complexes. So right now, if you have 100 units and you live in an apartment complex in that 100 units, your manager should be supplying you with recycling services. And I ask you to talk to the manager there. Now, that concludes my speech. It talks about zero waste and what we're doing locally. I can take any questions.
Okay. I see a question here from Richard Halpin.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, the forum, for doing this great community service. Terrific presentation. Thank you so much for all that you do. I'm interested in that, in so many of the aspects, but one particularly, that solar field, that solar farm that you talked about. It sounds like you have some land, or the city has some land, and there are several people here today from the Austin Interfaith Environmental Network, and I wonder if you'd be open to a discussion with them about the sacredness of the land we live in, and using that space as a solar co-op, for example, to support the utilities of churches and nonprofits and residentials.
I'd be very happy to engage in that conversation. I would also note that the city, there's a lot of conversations with Austin Energy about solar, up and down, and good news, bad news. The city's looking at its surplus property, and wherever there's surplus property that it desires to keep the land, we're looking at a solar potential. So there's a lot of potential out there, the landfill being one of them. And we're guesstimating about 165 acres available for solar at the old landfill. But I'd encourage the ongoing discussion. I'd be happy to participate.
Thank you. Can you tell us briefly the problems that you're experiencing in your pilot composting program?
I first want to mention that Paul Robbins publishes the Austin Environmental Directory, and happy to have that service. The pilot that we're having right now, we are experiencing some difficulties in food waste collection. We are capturing in the pilot area 5 pounds per household. Our target was 10 pounds per household. So we're capturing half the food waste that we thought we would capture. We're experiencing and talking to the residents the yuck factor. When you collect food waste and you put it in your trash cart, we don't want you to put it in your trash cart. We want you to put it in the green cart that is being supplied to these pilot areas. And we thought that was just a simple transfer from don't put it here to put it here. And really, when you put it in your trash cart, you're putting it in a plastic bag. And we're saying don't put it in a plastic bag in the green cart. The plastic bags are a contaminant to composting. That transfer of food waste in a non-plastic bag scenario is the barrier. And we're definitely trying to work with residents, trying to find the sweet spot of what works with residents, what needs to happen to make that food waste captured.
Tom Didek, and thank you for your presentation. I'm wondering if your department has done any explorations into the possibilities of mining existing landfills to extend the life and maybe get some resources that way.
I have been a follower of mining of landfills for 20 years. I haven't found a good economic model that works. You have to have high resale value of the material you're trying to capture because it's costly to dig and excavate. However, We're getting close. We're getting close, and we're going to be working on a bid pretty soon to, it's a landfill gas-to-energy bid. And I know there's a couple of companies, we'll field probably 20 bids for this project. I know there's a couple of companies that are interested in landfill mining, where they're interested in core sampling certain cells and doing some landfill mining as they try to capture the gas that captures some of the material. How that floats in the bidding process and whether that's an affordable project, I don't know. But I'm very curious about it, very interested.
2 points. With the composting bin, I'm in the test market, and the blue bins. I work out of my garage. It's a shop, and so I generate a lot of wood products as well as steel. Do a little bit of welding and such. So, but the steel is not allowed in the blue bin, and the wood will not. You guys won't take it in the green bins. Is there any chance that that's going to be accepted at some point?
Yeah,
it's clean steel and it's clean. I don't put like processed wood or treated woods in there or painted.
You definitely have some target materials I want to capture. Is the wood painted or stained, or is it clean? Mostly clean. We'll be doing some changes to our composting program. Stay tuned. About a year from now, we'll be able to take wood that is unstained and unfinished in the composting.
Because you're able to take branches up to 3 inches, so I'm like, well, if I split 2x4s, move it down.
Yeah, we have to change some chipping equipment and some of our processes, but we aim for the collecting of that material. On the steel, if the steel tends to be a problem with the recycling MRFs, the processors that throw it out on an assembly line. Small steel cans, soup cans and that, perfect for going through a MRF. You got a steel bar that's heavier. That can damage some of the drums and some of the equipment at the MRF. So we would encourage you to collect that and take it to our Todd Lane facility. And we now have a resource recovery facility open. You can drive into the old transfer station. It's not going to be used for a transfer station again. So we've got like a drive-in where you can drop off that material, and perhaps you could drop off your wood too until we can get the composting program up on that. Mm-hmm. Todd Lane facility would take the wood and the metal, anything recyclable.
Okay.
And by May, we'll have Ecology Action located there, and they'll be assisting in taking more recyclables there as well too.
My question, I've enjoyed the presentation. Do you have a feel for, I'm sure somebody does, the energy investment, say, in, for example, per ton of glass to recycle it, how many kilowatt hours of energy does it take to do that, typically?
There are many economic studies on energy usage and recycling. I don't have the numbers available to me, and I can get them to you. The general results of these studies indicate that recycling saves energy compared to raw materials. So like glass, take a bauxite ore, mining the bauxite ore, about 10% of the soils is aluminum strata. And when you make aluminum, there's a certain energy component. When you recycle the cans, including the collection through the trucks, including all of the processing, including the remanufacturing, the full life cycle, there's still an energy savings. Now, if at the processing end, they claim a 90% savings of energy. If you include collection and shipping, processing, it's about a 40% savings in energy.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of quick questions. Number one has to do with that small percent that you don't like to deal with, and that is threadbare clothing and old shoes.
An old shoe?
Yeah, and I'm sure there are other things like that, like bed bug infested mattresses, etc. Sometimes I feel uncomfortable about putting threadbare clothing into the trash, and I think, well, maybe I'll send it to Goodwill, and they have a special place. That's number one. Secondly, is I'm not in the garbage domestic recycle, so I don't know exactly what you're doing there. I do No, observing in Seattle, where my son lives, that there's a special thing that they give people to put their composting in. So I'd like to know more about that. More you do too. Thank you.
Yeah, in general, quick answer to your question, that 10%, we're chunking that away. We're trying to study what's in that 10%. So like you mentioned mattresses, we're doing a pilot study right now with Goodwill Industries, where we're paying Goodwill to pick up mattresses and strip off the cloth, pull out the metals and the wood and recycle. And they're recycling 98% of what they're collecting out of mattresses and bed springs. So it's becoming a successful pilot. There's some cost behind it, but we're working on that. There's also other components to the waste stream. CFL light bulbs that have mercury in them in that 10%. GE, Sylvania, all these manufacturers, they're going to be phasing out CFLs and going to LEDs. And so now we're looking at recyclability of LEDs. And so the product stream keeps changing. That 10% is something we're looking at to see how we can get it into the recycling stream or the compostable stream or some special collection. Mattresses will be in the special collection category. There's a lot of chemicals and ceramics in that category too, and we're trying to expand our collection of household hazardous waste in that category. So it's a focus of ours. I mentioned that it's an undesirable attention on that 10% because I don't want people to feel like we can't get the 90% because of this 10%. We need to work on that 10%, but the 90% is the compostables and the recyclables.
Two things. I walk usually on trash pickup day in my neighborhood because things, for some reason, fall out.
Yeah.
And I pick them up and put them back in.
Thank you.
But I notice that a lot of people still putting plastic bags in their recycling bin, and I'm hoping that they don't say, well, this will just have to go into the landfill.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm concerned about is you mentioned CFLs. A lot of places will accept CFLs, but they will not accept fluorescent tubes. And so Home Depot and Lowe's used to let me drop off my fluorescent tubes. Now they won't anymore, and I'm seeing more and more fluorescent tubes sticking out of trash cans. So that and CDs and DVDs, I'm not sure what to do with those, and I don't know how to find this place in South Austin where it is.
I think you got a good collection of issues there on the fluorescent tubes. The U.S. EPA changed the rules on how to handle fluorescent tubes, and all of a sudden the major retailers said, we're not collecting them anymore. We're not going to deal with the rules. So they become a challenge for our household hazardous waste collection, and we're trying to recover. It's a matter of trying to prevent breakage of the tubes, and we're working on that end. But that's like a multi-year effort trying to get back into the swing of picking up fluorescents. But I really think the commercial businesses that hang those fluorescent tubes, those are the big box stores and retailers. I think they'll be switching over to LEDs. They're more powerful lighting for less energy output. And so I think you'll see a change in the lighting. Back to the plastic bags. Before the ordinance restricting plastic bags at the retail checkout counter, there was, by our estimates, 256 million single-use plastic bags distributed in Austin annually. And they were ending up in the landfill. 256 million. With the ordinance now a full year in effect, almost a full year in effect, we think we're down to 10% of those bags being distributed, and we hope to get down to 0. But there's still some out there, and they can't go in the blue bin because they snag the recycling equipment. I've seen equipment that really gets snagged up. They have downtime. They have to use razor cutters to cut the bags out of the equipment. So putting it in a recycling bin isn't very good. We have worked with H-E-B and Walmart and a few other retail stores to continue the practice of collecting the plastic bags at their front doors until they disappear, until they are no longer distributed. And that's the best option. Not the landfill, not the recycling cart. Did I miss one in there? CDs, DVDs, yeah, they're everywhere. We're working with the library. They're a specialized type of plastic. They are recyclable. They're non-traditional plastic that doesn't go into the blue bin. The library has a very effective recycling program of them. Recycle Reads enjoys donations. I would recommend going to them. But also, That's a part of technology that's going to be phased out over time, too. We feel that technology will eliminate that problem over time. It's a matter of dealing with the current problem.
Yes, additional things. Have you considered, or is there already on your website, for these odds and ends like DVDs, CDs, batteries, different bulbs, that you have a small amount and driving all the way to the hazardous waste? Do you have on your website, if you don't know what to do with these, here are some places to check out. Is that information easily available? That's one. And then can you offer me any hope on things like cat litter, diapers, and compostable paper? I can't do anything until I'm in the compost area. Wet paper towels, things like that.
A quick one on the compostable papers. Once we get a green cart to your house on the organics pilot, you can put compostable papers. You may not be in that pilot area, though. Many, particularly medical-based devices, diabetes with the insulin shots, like catheters, many adult diapers as well as baby diapers. Those are difficult items that cannot go into the blue card. We are working on two ends. One, the medical community is actually proactively trying to identify recycled resins where they could be recyclable material. And the restriction is if it doesn't get contaminated with body fluids. Once it's contaminated with body fluids, it's a medical waste. So there's that complication there. The other end is that we're trying to expand our authority with TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, on what we can collect at the household hazardous waste site. So we're trying to get some of those items collected, but it takes special permission from the state. Website, good news, bad news, some list up there, not as effective as I'd like. I think it's an excellent idea that I'll bring back to my staff tomorrow. Can many of these odd items that are being brought up in this forum, can we put that up on the website? And I'll talk to my staff tomorrow on that.
My question is regarding pet waste composting. What's in the works for that?
Yeah. As we redesign our composting efforts, it's no-go right now, but in the future, we envision that pet waste could be captured within our compostables. We're probably 2 years out from that. At the moment, it is a landfill waste. I hate to say it. I'm very hesitant to say that. But there is no real answer until we can get a more dynamic composting program that can accept that.
I have a question about styrofoam. A lot of restaurants around town still will give you a styrofoam cup, and a lot of other ones just give you like a paper cup, which seems to work fine. I'm wondering if the city might be considering not allowing styrofoam in restaurant uses particularly, and also like for the to-go boxes. There are compostable options for to-go boxes, but usually the cheaper thing that restaurants do is styrofoam. Are there thoughts about what to do about styrofoam?
Good question, and we're doing research on that right now. In the styrofoam world, there are two main areas, pre-consumer and post-consumer. The pre-consumer styrofoam, there is limited recycling markets, very difficult to ship, very difficult to collect, very difficult to bale. It's lightweight. It's very cost inefficient, but it can be done. And we're looking at what we can do with pre-consumer styrofoam. Post-consumer, I do have a staff intern from the university that's researching what can be done with post-consumer styrofoam. That's the coffee cups and the drink cups from the fast food restaurants and so forth. Generally speaking, I think that study is going to end pretty soon. Generally speaking, we're finding dead ends. We're not finding the recycling options. I have the responsibility when I bring an ordinance to council to say to city council, we've done our research. And so we're in that research stage. I suspect, and I'll be discussing this with staff in the next month, I suspect we're heading down the path of an ordinance that would ban styrofoam in the post-consumer, fast food, cup-oriented world, paper, styrofoam plates, and so forth. What I've asked staff that are researching this to do is let's shift gears. If we can't find recycling markets for this, what's the replacement products? Can we offer the fast food industry replaceable products that are not costly but compostable? And that's what their research is working on right now. I hope to have some public meetings on that later this year on styrofoam. It is a problem material. It doesn't end up to be a large weight in our waste stream. It is a nuisance product in our waste stream, very much so. Ask any landfill operator on a windy day, and they don't like styrofoam.
Jim McCall, I was curious as to the relative sizes of the waste stream from the apartments versus the single-family houses and how that's going to change over the next decade or two.
Very, very good question. We are intending to do some waste studies this year as well as next year to help answer that question. We look at the number of residents that are in apartments versus the number of residents in single family, and it's almost dead even 50-50. There is old theories, old studies, which I'm rejecting from other cities, that apartment dwellers have lower generation of waste than single family. I really don't think that's true in today's world. Those studies are 10, 15 years old. They're in cities like New York and San Francisco with a lot of density and smaller households. And if you look at per capita waste from an apartment complex versus per capita of a single family, I think they're identical in the amount of waste. Composition might be a little different. I think it's a growing problem in this city, the waste from apartment complexes. And talking about trends, the city demographer, Ryan Robinson, predicts that by the end of this decade, 60% of our residents will be in apartments. So it's a growing trend, and it's an issue we need to deal with.
Well, Bob, thank you so much. I've learned a lot that I need to be doing that I haven't been aware of. So this is really informative, and we want to thank you again for taking your time to join us.
And thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.